My name is Greg Ingram. I'm president of the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 6th annual Land Policy Conference sponsored by the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy. The themes of these conferences over the years have alternated between local public finance topics and more general land policy topics. This year's theme on land value capture falls more or less clearly within the realm of local public finance, but it really also affects other issues, has repercussions for land development and even for urban form. Along with a copy of the conference papers, which many of you, I'm happy to say, asked to get on a memory stick instead of in hard copy, which saves a lot of paper. Along with that, you also have at your seats a copy of the volume from last year's conference, which was on climate change. That volume addresses many of the linkages between land policy and climate change, ranging from the implications of climate change and sea level rise for coastal areas and coastal cities to the capacity that's required for the governance of this global public good or global public bad, depending on how you look at it. Both last year's conference and the conference the year before, which dealt with municipal finance, new sources of revenue for municipalities, are relevant to today's conference because value capture certainly has the potential for being a source of revenue for local municipalities. And it's also the case that with respect to climate change, a lot of the investments that are going to be involved in climate change are going to have tremendous impacts on land values. And so value capture begins to be a candidate mechanism for financing some of the investments that are going to be associated with climate change. Incidentally, for those of you who are writing these papers and discussing them and preparing remarks, we aim every year to produce the volume 11 months after the conference, and we've done that for the last 5 years. And so here is physical evidence that we do that. So I just want you all to prepare yourself to be responsive to our deadlines as we proceed. And I also want to note this is not the last time you'll hear this from us, but I wanted to get you used to a sort of recurrent message. As we have proceeded with the organization of this conference, I've been gratified the topic has proven to be very timely. And I've asked myself what accounts for its timeliness. It turns out, for example, in the last week or so, we've had several people call us who've learned about the conference, say, we're working on this, we'd really like to attend the conference. This is not something that happens to us every year, and this is a rather obscure and specialized topic, and so I've been thinking about why is it that this has proven to be such a timely topic. Well, one reason is, of course, the local fiscal crisis goes on. Value capture is a source of municipal revenue, and if you're just seeking new sources of general funds, this is another candidate that you will want to look at. In part, it's also related to the need for infrastructure investment funds in the United States because value capture is particularly associated with infrastructure investments which improve land values. And a lot of the practices in the world have to do with various kinds of infrastructure investments ranging from sidewalks and streetlights to larger municipal investments. The third reason, I think, is it's in the air. It's been popularized by books and recent articles, many of which draw on experience from other countries, international experience with value capture, much more than in the United States. And then, of course, the fourth reason is there are a number of ongoing practices, disparate practices, practices like tax increment financing and so on and so forth, which are actually forms of value capture. And value capture has emerged as a kind of umbrella over a set of practices that actually have some familiarity to many of us here in the room. So we've tried to design a program that will reveal and explain many of the complexities of value capture. Some of the issues and points we're looking at, for example, are first the issue of symmetry, and that is if governments seek payment by landowners for increases in the value of their land caused by public actions, should governments also compensate landowners for public actions that reduce the value of their land? This is the issue of partial givings and partial takings that you read about in the literature. The second issue is, gee, are we already doing it? Are we like Monsieur Jourdain in Moliere's novel who learned he'd been speaking prose for 40 years and hadn't realized it? Are we actually already engaging in a lot of value capture? And here we look at traditional instruments like property taxation, for example, and look at the extent to which existing instruments either embody value capture or can be made to embody value capture to a larger extent. Third, drawing on international experience, we look at experience with betterment levies in Britain and France. We look at transit system value capture schemes in Tokyo and Hong Kong, and at airport improvement fees in several countries. In addition, we also examined land pooling arrangements using an example from Gujarat, India. A lot of land pooling has been done, sometimes called land reorganization, has been done in Asia. So we have one example there. And finally, we look at governments as landowners and nonprofits as landowners and discuss the extent to which value capture can be used for those owners as well. And there we're looking at the management of U.S. lands, U.S. government-owned lands in the West, and also at nonprofit entities. So turning back now to the simple theory of land value capture, economists often find it and other taxes on land to be efficient and particularly to be relatively non-distorting. Relatively, that is, relative to other taxes. That essentially any time you place a tax on a good, you change its relative price, and that can distort the extent to which it's used. And land taxes have the characteristic that they distort prices minimally and therefore don't change economic outcomes very much.